Peace, world. Thanks for pressing play on another Pay Me No Mind sports and entertainment video. My name is Wood. This is really a quick hit. Just two NBA topics that I see out here, and I just have my opinions on them. If you disagree or agree, want to contribute to the discussion, I'm more than eager to listen. So let's jump into it. I'll start with the Giannis situation. Giannis Antetokounmpo has a hyper extension last night and leaves the game in the third quarter. The Bucks had struggled through the first half of the Trae Young-less Atlanta Hawks. And after he had the injury, which occurred at a play at the rim with a lot of bodies leaping all at the same time, and he comes down awkwardly on his leg. I think it was his left leg, from what I recall. I didn't look at the footage at the time. I hear hyperextension, and I don't want to see it. I don't need to see it. But he was helped off the court. He made it back out onto the bench momentarily before things ballooned from a 10-point deficit to a 20-point deficit to the Hawks. And of course, we want to rush to, can he make it back? What's the prognosis, on the injury? Is he done for this year? Is this something that goes into next year? I saw, interestingly, that Stephen A. Smith rushed to it's an ACL injury. I don't know how you get that from home on the couch or in the hotel room or whatever, but that's Stephen A. Smith. And then to bring it home, there was a post on Instagram with different athletes. I believe the first photo or the first image was LeBron's tweet. And, people were complaining about, once revisiting the whole argument about the injuries are marring the postseason, the NBA's postseason. And I get it. We haven't seen the elite athletes really have, or basketball players, really have bad injuries in the postseason all of these years. The last 25, 30 years. I know Magic went out when I started early on when I was watching it. Magic went out against the Bulls, I believe. He left that series. Made it easier for Michael to win his first ring and whatnot, if memory serves me correctly there. But typically, and we've seen it increasingly, Kevin Durant a few years ago, Klay Thompson. So it's not like this doesn't happen. Here was specifically speaking on Giannis. Man, this is a 6'10" guy handling the ball a lot. We have this philosophy now about building a wall and making it, multiple layers to navigate through the lane to get to the hoop. This dude is getting hit from the side. He was already complaining about some hip injuries or some soreness in his hip or something. This dude's limbs are long. It's a lot of it's a lot of surface for contact when he goes down to the to the floor after a shot or whatever. He doesn't play like in the 80s and 90s. He's not a guy who's anchored in the post within 5 feet from the rim with his back to the hoop. He's getting downhill, building up a lot of momentum. The stakes are raised in the postseason. He's taking a lot of bumps and bangs. He's bringing the ball up the court. It's just a lot of opportunity for his body to get out of alignment. I mean, if you think about it, with the cutting and the all the physicality, all the physical play, and this being a contact sport. I like how Joy, I can't think of her last name, on Colin Cowherd's show said, football is a collision sport. This is hers, not mine. She said football is a collision sport. Basketball is a contact sport. I really like that look or that characterization of the two, of the differences between the two. So I understand that we could be sitting here with a less than stellar matchup for the NBA Finals. But I just think, and I understand they when they started the season, going to the bubble last year, I understand that this has disrupted the normal calendar year for the sport. But it's competing, it's competition. I mean, this stuff means something to these guys. And I just think it's just unfortunate, but the usage of the first line guys or the first unit guys, the way that he has to get buckets. You saw the air ball last night from 3-point. Him taking that type of beating is what team success and accomplishing the ultimate goal of winning a ring as a 2-time MVP or whatever it is, a defensive player of the year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is the cost to get that ring and to silence the detractors and all of that type stuff. So I hope the guy can somehow make it back. It didn't look good. But at least I look out here and I see this. I see what I take my 2.5 hours of time to watch and being tuned in this season, in the earlier rounds of the playoffs for a change. It's attrition. It's the nature of the game. So we'll see what happens. We got to just roll with negative things happening. Everything isn't the end of the world. Exactly. The second thing, moving on to the other thing that caught my attention this morning was this Yahoo Sports article by Dan Feldman. It's a report that the Trailblazers received. The title of it is Report Trailblazers Received Less Than Glowing Feedback from Spurs on Becky Hammon, who had made it to the final. She was a finalist reportedly for the head coaching job in Portland. After Terry Stotts, they moved on after failing to get out of the first round of the playoffs. Obviously, Becky Hammon would have been the first, was in play to be the first female head coach in the NBA. Wherever you sit with that happening or that becoming a reality, that's not what I'm talking about. The interesting thing here is from Jake Fisher's article on Bleacher Report. It's a quote in this Yahoo Sports piece. He says that Hammon impressed Portland officials and was generally liked among Blazers staffers, sources said. But when Portland reached out for intel from San Antonio figures, the background on Hammon was not nearly as complimentary, pertaining to various aspects of day-to-day coaching responsibilities. That sentiment has been echoed by sources around the league. Blazers personnel then cast doubt that Hammon was the candidate to steer the ship through such delicate waters with Lillard. This is interesting because, and the key thing to tap into right there is not nearly as complimentary pertaining to various aspects of day-to-day coaching responsibilities. So what's been going on? And these are these anonymous sources. This gets dicey because what's going on where when Coach Popovich missed the game or was kicked out of the game or whatever, however it came to be, maybe it was load management for Pop. But Becky Hammon moved into the first chair, and I'm pretty sure that the team ended up winning. So what has she done, in her stint as part of the staff for it to be decided that she would move into the head coach spot for this game or this half, whatever it was? I thought it was last year. But they went to her to be the coach. And now we're hearing that the Spurs figures didn't even say San Antonio personnel or staff. It's San Antonio figures. It's worded very weirdly to me. But what is she not doing in the day-to-day to where somebody could question her her professionalism or her level of readiness, to move in as the full-time head coach for an NBA franchise. And then when it goes to say that sentiment has been echoed by sources around the league, well, what the hell else? How would the Indiana Pacers have known about this? Or the Memphis Grizzlies, or the Toronto Raptors, or the Orlando Magic, or the Sacramento Kings? Like, who else could you have called and someone else said, oh yeah, she got some problems during the week, or on travel days, so this is interesting. So anyway, Billups gets the job. They did come back in here. There was a statement from the team that said, we obviously admire Becky. She did a great job making it as far as the owner, and the process isn't easy. That's an interview with the owner, with her being a finalist. It goes on to say she made it all the way to the ownership level, which is an endorsement. Trailblazers GM Neil Oshie said during the press conference introducing Billups as the Portland coach. And then lastly, for me to just finish off my thoughts on this, like I said, wherever individuals were with Hammon potentially becoming the coach of the Blazers, especially for people like me and then the everyday fan, we're not privy to these interviews and to hear, even in an Eric Bieniemy for the Kansas City Chiefs, we don't know how these guys, these candidates, men and women, go in here and how they speak about the job. We don't know what their day-to-day, how they, what their performance is in their day-to-day roles in their current jobs. But we don't know how they go in here and meet with 5 and 6 representatives from a team and talk about the job they're interviewing for, how they answer questions, what their presentation is like. We don't know how players react to them in the, what's the conversation in the locker room? What are the moments in practice? We don't know these details. So to go in here and speak on these situations in any way without knowing any of that really is reckless. Let's be honest. I just thought with her being a member of the Spurs coaching staff, knowing what Coach Popovich and what that franchise has done the last 25 years or so as a postseason, regarding its number of consecutive postseason appearances, the 5 titles, you think that's a tight, a top-notch unit. And for her to be, like I said, for her to be in the second or third seat and to replace Coach Popovich in a real game, something doesn't add up there for me, So that's all I really have to go on. I didn't really have, had she been hired, I would have watched what became of, her first opportunity as a head coach. That's what I would have had to go on. So we'll see what happens. That's just me taking a look at 2 of the biggest headlines, that we have in the last 24 hours. So that's it. Pay me no mind, sports and entertainment. Feel free to do so. Remember, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Peace.